Shannon, what's going on?
Well, let's see. I just celebrated my 25th wedding anniversary this past week.
And how did you celebrate?
We went out to dinner. But you know what we did too? We went out to dinner to one of our favorite places. It was about 2,000 degrees out, so it was really interesting. But we did go up to the place that we got married, which is in New Hampshire, Sugar Hill, New Hampshire, a couple weeks ago. And it was kind of fun to reminisce about our wedding, which you attended, by the way.
I did. It was beautiful. You looked beautiful, and you
Thank
looked so
you.
happy as you do today. I remember the lupines in the
Yes.
field. It was really beautiful.
Yeah, there's not as many as there were back then, but it was really gorgeous. And you just got back from vacation in Maine. How was that?
It was delightful. I was in Bailey Island, Maine, and I mostly just hung out with my friends and knit and read and stared at the ocean, and it was... and ate some fried fish, which was fabulous, and it was magical.
That sounds really wonderful, as all vacations should be. So, well, you want to get our episode started?
I do. I'm excited.
Yes, I'm excited too because we have two very, very special guests here today. My parents, Bob and Jean Poodiack. And both of my parents are in their 80s. They both kick ass. They continue to be active. They are a wonderful example of staying active your whole life and paying dividends when you're older. They continue to be very active. They also are madly in love to the point of nauseating both myself and my brother Rob, but we admire them. So welcome, Bob and Jean Poodiack.
Oh, thank you.
Otherwise known as Mom and Dad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we're going to start some questions. Susan's going to start in asking some questions of Dad, of Bob. I don't know which to call you. Should I call you Dad during this, or should we just stay consistent with Bob?
Well, whoever the audience is listening, they'll know that Dad and Bob are the same guy.
That's very
So,
true.
No problem.
Very logical and pretty fabulous. It is so nice to meet you in person. Shannon is wonderful. I'm so glad that she's my friend, and I'm sure you're so proud of her.
I certainly am. And
Yeah.
so is his mom.
Yeah. So tell me, you were born in 1936 in Danbury, Connecticut.
Right during the Depression, yep.
Absolutely. And you were a small boy during World War II. Tell us what you remember about growing up at that time.
The first memory I had at the time, I had to think about it later on in life. I was visiting my mother's sister, my Aunt Mary, in Danbury, and I was playing with my cousin Tommy. He had Lincoln logs. They were playing on the floor, and they had the radio going, and my aunt was sitting there next to my Uncle Tom, and I wasn't thinking anything about it, and they were listening to the radio, and suddenly my aunt became hysterical. She started screaming and crying, and my uncle grabbed her and hugged her, and I looked and I thought, geez, the house we're building isn't that bad, you know. I didn't realize till later that they had just listened to Franklin Delano Roosevelt talking about the bombing of Pearl Harbor and that World War II had started. And of course, my mother came from a large Italian family. My name's Poodiack, but I grew up as a Capilano. That was my mother had 9 brothers and sisters. My mother was the oldest. And 4 of her brothers ended up in World War II, my uncles, in various branches. So that's my first experience. I realized later that I had listened. I didn't know what was going on, but I had seen her get hysterical, and I had no idea what it was about, and that was it, you know. And but then during the years, I went from 6 years old to 7, 8, 9, and everything became World War II. What was going on in World War II? Our games, our comments, you know. Whistle while you work. Mussolini bought a shirt. Hitler wore it. Britain tore it. Whistle while you work. We sang it all the time. And then, you know, up and down the street. I don't even know if we knew what it was. We played war games. We had planes. We shot each other down. We made tanks out of cardboard boxes, crawling and running to each other. And I had the one that really struck me was standing in a rationing line. We were fairly poor. My father had left. My mother had 3 boys. She didn't even have a high school education. And this was like bounty for her because when she got her ration book, we couldn't afford a car, all right? So we didn't have a car, but you got gasoline rationing. You got tires every once in a while. She would trade them. She would trade them for food. She would trade them. It was like a bounty. So that I remember standing in line, holding her hand, in a large line on Main Street in Danbury, waiting to get our ration book. The other thing was standing in line with her to get nylon stockings on Main Street in Danbury. All right, and watching my aunts come in. My mother was one of four sisters. She was the oldest. Everybody visited our house. I can remember my aunts coming in and standing there. My mother would draw a pencil mark down the back of their legs, and for nylon stockings. You couldn't get them.
Yeah, to make it look like they were wearing stockings.
Yeah, exactly. And I can remember doing it. And I didn't know I was ahead of the thing, but my mother bought a little machine, had a little piece of red cloth on it, and I would make cigarettes for her. She would have loose tobacco and tobacco things, and as a kid, I would sit there and I'd put the paper down, and you rolled this little machine. It had a handle, and you'd make a cigarette. Later on in the 60s, when I taught school, the kids would talk about roach clips for the marijuana. The roach clips were way before that. My mother would sit there with my aunts. They would take their bobby pins out, put it on the cigarette, and smoke that thing till the ashes fell behind their teeth. You couldn't get cigarettes. I'd stand in line with her. Lucky Strike Green went to war. Lucky Strike always came with a big green symbol. Next thing you knew, it was white with a big white symbol. They were using the green for uniforms, color. And I remember standing in line with her, and she would be waiting, and she would get these cigarettes called Wings. They had little filters on them. The first filter cigarettes. My mother would break it off, and everybody smoked in those days. It was the thing to do, you know. But I remember all of that, and all of the movies you went to. The bad guys were the Japanese and Germans, you know, and they talked funny. They were all cruel. We rooted against them. It was just a childhood for 5 years of just playing war, talking war, and having it affect our lives.
Thank you so much for sharing that. When I think about your earliest memory of hearing about the bombing of Pearl Harbor and your uncles joining the military, you joined the military as a Marine when you were 17.
That's right.
And can you share your plan for college on the GI Bill, and how did that go?
Yeah, I wish I had a great story. I hope no kids are listening to me right now. But I came from a family where everybody worked in factories. We had hat shops. We were the hat city of the world. Everybody made their living doing that. And my best friend that I went into the Marine Corps with, Bobby Toth, when we were getting out, he picked me up at Camp Lejeune, and we were on the way home. And I had just fortunately had two guys move into my barracks. We had an open barracks of 78 guys with double racks. They just happened to get the one next to me. And they're both getting out, same time I am, and they're both talking about going to college. And they said to me, "Are you going to college?" I said, "Nah." I said, "I'm going to get a job in one of the factories, you know." And they said, "Oh, you're a fool." I said, "We've got the GI Bill." I had no idea. No one in the service talked about it. I said, "What's that?" They said, "They pay you to go to college." I said, "Pay you?" They said, "Yeah, you get a check every month if you go to college." So when my friend picked me up, Bob Toth, in his car, I said to him, "Bobby, we can go to college, Danbury Teachers College, in our hometown." I said, "We could go there, have a great time for 6 months. We flunk out, what the heck, we can always go to work, you know." And he said to me, "Nah, my father's got us a job up at Kimberly-Clark." He said, "For both of us." I said, "I want to go there." I said, "We could have a good time." Couldn't talk him into it. He ended up going there. He hated the job, went back and made a career out of the Marine Corps. I went there for a lark. I said, 6 months, have a good time, go work in the factory. Unfortunately, I got to sit next to two guys in class one was both from the Air Force, both older than me. And I started studying with them and surprised myself. I got a 4-year degree in education. And that's how I became a teacher. I had no idea of becoming a teacher when I got out of the Marine Corps. All right? And the reason I went in the Marine Corps, one of my mother's brothers, my Uncle Jim, he was in the Marine Corps, fought at Iwo Jima, was wounded there, ended up in a hospital in Florida, met my Aunt C, who was a nurse. So when I had a chance to go into the Marine Corps, I jumped at it. I was 17 years old. I didn't know what I was going to do, But it did. The best part of that was it did get me to go to college, even if it was for a lark.
Well,
I just didn't realize I would do so well.
well, Shannon has shared with me that you were a beloved teacher and really enjoyed your students, and your students really enjoyed you, which is a magical thing to impact so many young lives. So Shannon shared also with me that you were a fifth grade teacher specializing in science. What experiences can you share about being a fifth grade science teacher?
I survived, and so did the kids. I started off in fifth grade. This is 1961, 62. And, just married. And they put me in fifth grade. I loved it. As a matter of fact, the first month of school, the big thing that was going on in the world was Khrushchev in the United States in the Cold War, talking about atomic war. And I had a thing we did with the kids. It was part of the curriculum. We had to do news. And so we talked a little bit about what was going on in the Cold War with fifth graders, just like, and they said, what can we do? Can we do anything about it? I said, I can't think of anything. I said, you could write some letters to Khrushchev and tell him how you feel. And they said, we want to do it. So I had a class writing letters to Khrushchev. I put them in envelopes. So we addressed them, we stamped them, we sent them off. Lo and behold, one of the girls' father was the editor for the Danbury News Times. So article appeared in the Danbury News Times. Mr. Robert Poodiack's class wrote letters to Khrushchev, and he quoted his daughter and her friend. We don't want the world to be red with ashes, or black with ashes and red with blood, they wrote, right? That was the big quote. And I said to Jean, I'm in the Danbury News Times. We're watching television, Channel 8. Mr. Robert Poodiack's class has written these letters to Khrushchev, and they quoted the two girls' letters. And I go, holy moly, 1 month in teaching, and I'm in the newspaper in there. The next thing I do, I get a copy of the New York Times, page 7. Mr. Robert Poodiack's class in New Fairfield, Connecticut has written these letters. They took it off of that, right? And there I am. I get Time Magazine. Mr. Robert Poodiack's class.
Cut it out.
I said my 15 minutes of fame in 1 month.
We got to find these.
I was telling one of the girls that was babysitting for Robbie, and she looked at me like, this is a good phony story. And Robbie said, no, watch. He got on the computer, went to the New York Times. There it was. So, yeah, can you get it? Yeah, it's right there. So, and at home up in the attic, I have the magazine, I have the newspaper clippings. And then I started getting stuff at the school from Communist Party, Socialists.
I was wondering.
I got records from somebody, thank you for this kind of stuff, And the principal came and maybe go down to the boiler room and throw it all into the furnace and burn it up. He was afraid it was going to get around town that I was getting communist papers. My 15 minutes of fame, really. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I think what I love about that story is the voice that you gave your students. The idea that their voice mattered. Whether those letters got to Khrushchev or not, it's that they were heard. And an adult was giving them an opportunity to speak and to voice an opinion about something that they maybe were worried about. Because I remember that in the 80s, people feeling like, that was a potential reality, and, you really helped them maybe manage some fear around it.
Yeah. So that was my fifth grade experiment. Then they fired the science teacher, and at that time in the 60s, they just came down and said, you're through in fifth grade, go up and teach science. And it lasted 1 year. I didn't kill anybody.
I thought you were going to kill yourself.
We did some great experiments. I stunk out the entire school with that. I had this book. I would open it. And I'd say to the kids.
Ahead of the kids.
Yeah, I would say to the kids, this looks interesting. You take some sulfur and mix it with some metal grindings in a test tube and heat it. And it said underneath it, rotten egg odor. And I said, how bad could it be? Right? So I heated it over one of those Bunsen burners in the classroom, and the metal started glowing, and I saw this vapor, of yellow vapor, start to rise up out of the tube. It came out, stunk up the entire classroom, and went up the ventilating system down the hall to all the classes, and I could hear the people screaming out in the hallway, "What's going on?" And I said, "Holy man!" The principal came up,
I can
fire
imagine.
in his eyes. He said, "What did you do?" I said, "I was just doing the chemical change experiment." He said, "You'll never do that experiment again." I didn't tell him that I read that it was going to be a rotten egg odor. So, and the kids were all at the window with their heads up.
I loved it.
So, really, it was kind of hysterical. I was afraid at the time I was going to get fired, but I didn't.
I guarantee you those kids tell that story over and over. Remember when?
Those kids are now in their 70s. That's the crazy
One of the
part.
girls came from Washington State, Sullivan, all right, Sullivan girl, took Jeannie and me out for dinner,
Yeah.
And she said, "I became a science teacher because of your class, And I
Because
said,
most of them read it from a
it's
book.
nice to know every once in a while that you do have an impact on somebody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I have another kind of pivoting here, but a question for you. You retired 25 years ago. I recently retired little almost 3 years. Just 3 years and a couple weeks. What advice do you have for enjoying retirement?
Well, one of my favorite phases, Jeannie gave it to me, because she's the brains of the family, trust me, is that you don't give up exercising because you got old. You get old because you give up exercising, Jeannie and I were big into running. Ran in 36 marathons, 26.2 miles, Boston. I have trophies and medals in the attic, in the den, in the living room. My daughter will tell you, she's loaded with medals and trophies.
I gave the trophies away.
Yeah.
She's over it.
And if I could have beaten her in one race over the years, I would have been a happy man.
Yeah. For women.
Anyway, yeah, so one of the things, we continued our running. I'll be 89 in a few months. Jeannie's just turned 85. And we go out and do 5 miles every day. No more running.
I worked in
No more
healthcare, and
running.
they think it's wonderful that you can exercise.
No more running.
Absolutely.
But we keep active. And we did a lot of traveling. We went to Hawaii a couple of times, went to San Francisco and rode our bikes across the Golden Gate Bridge.
Wow.
Great, We went to Florida and ran in the very first Disney marathon, Jeannie and I.
That's awesome.
I don't have to say after each race she beat me, right? Just
It's
we
assumed
ran.
now.
As a matter of fact, they used to write articles about her because she was 36 marathons. Think of that, They write articles about her. And in one article, one of my ex-students was writing the article. And she said, all about Jeannie. And then there was one line. I was in one line that said, her husband Bob also ran. That's how famous my running was,
That's great advice, which I'll certainly take to heart. It's
Everyone should take to heart. If you have
Get
the
out in the
ability,
morning.
if you have the ability to exercise and you don't do it, you're doing yourself a great disservice for later on in life.
yeah, it's an
I
investment.
mean, my mother and father both passed away at 68. I'm going to be 89 in a couple of months. A large part of that is that I stayed active and I worked out and did all of the running and still do all of the walking. Of course, I have plastic knees now, but I still go out and I still get my 5 miles in every day.
That wasn't from the running either. It was from the arthritis.
That's what
That's what the doctor said.
yeah.
The doctor who did my knees, I told him, I ran so many thousands of miles and over 1,000 races, and he said, I think he was trying to make me feel better, and it did. He said, if you hadn't run, I would have probably replaced those knees 30 years ago. He said, that pounding is great for your bones.
For arthritis.
That's what he said. So, so I'll take him at his word.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing with me.
Right now, it's your turn, Mom/Jean. We're going to ask you You know what's fun about doing this interview is even though I have questions here and I know some of the answers, like you just surprised me, Dad, with that answer about cruise stuff. I bet you told me that when I was younger, but I completely forgot. So I'm asking some questions that maybe I should know, but just think I would ask. Okay. So both Mom and Dad, but Mom, you grew up in Danbury, Connecticut as well.
I was born there.
You were born there, and you went to hairdressing school in Stanford,
I was
right?
hairdresser in cosmetology and nursing.
That's right. So how did you choose that career? Like what made you decide to go that route?
I had no choice because my mother and father could not afford to send me to nursing or to become a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, I can combine the two,
Mm-hmm.
and it turned out wonderful because I started working for Glen Hill. It's a nursing home. And they said, we really need a hairdresser that can make some of these people look decent in case they have a stroke or a heart attack or anything in the chair, you know what to do. And I said, fine. So, I went back to days and I started doing that.
That's really amazing.
I loved it.
Yeah. And you worked there. How many years did you work at Glen Hill?
I worked there about, 10?
At least 10.
At least 10.
I think, yeah. Well, I was going to say you probably worked there.
Nights when your kids were
Yes.
younger because I was home with you for until you were about 12. And then I
Yes.
started working nights. So they never thought I worked.
Yeah.
And of course, the housewife always works. She's
That's
always
right.
cooking and cleaning. And so then they wanted me to work days and nights. I said, hey, could I sleep a little bit?
That's awesome. So then you went from being working in that nurse, like an aide, to
Yeah.
being the hairdresser there
Yeah.
and having your own shop for many years. In fact, your own mom was there while you worked there,
Yes.
wasn't she?
She was there for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And then she passed away.
Yeah. So the other piece that I know, because I can remember when you started, is you started running, you were probably age 41, 42, and you had never run. So can you share the story of how you started running in your 40s and what that experience was like learning how to run? Because Dad was already running.
Yeah, he said it would be nice if you could run and both of us could do something together when I retire. And when you retire, we could do something together. And I said, yeah, we could do races and marathons. He said, marathon? No. I said, no, I like long distance. So I was a heavy smoker, so I gave that up cold turkey. Just cold turkey, just gave it up one day and started running because you can't run and smoke at the same time. You start coughing. And I really liked it. And I could pass them. That's what I really liked the best. And at one race in Brantford, I think it was a Father's Day race, they were really clapping me on. And we had computer chips because they had a lot of cheating going on with racing. And we had the computer chip, and we never stepped on the computer right when we finished.
Well, you didn't tell her we were racing each other.
Yeah, I could
I
hear.
was
I
trying
could
to
tell
beat her
us.
for one time.
And I could hear her step.
And the crowd was booing me. They didn't know her husband and wife and cheering her on to beat me.
And I
I
did.
thought you were some mean man trying to beat this woman.
Yeah. And I did. I really, really enjoyed it. But I was also protected by some of the men. I ran a Danbury race where a man came right out and drove in Germantown Road and really tried to hit me. Say, get out of the way. And I said, we're in a race. You're not even supposed to be on the course. And he hit me. I mean, he really hit me in the butt. And all the men jumped on the car.
As they should.
Yes,
Yeah.
they should. I would have beaten them up.
And I had a frame on the back of my behind, a bruise just like that.
So I know that you, like you said, you went to be this amazing runner. You could run marathons, half marathons, races. You would win. You were competitive. But talk about that early experience, like when you quit heavy smoking and had to go out on the road. What was that like? Because you didn't just go out and run marathons. You had to start from the beginning, and it was probably really hard.
I did that, though. I would go out and I would get in a race, and I hadn't even trained properly. I didn't know the proper way until Dad came home one day, and he said to me, I'm a good runner that knows the proper training. He said, you're training wrong. If you're going to do a marathon, you got to run 4 20-milers. But meantime, you have to take a calendar, and you have to figure out every 2 weeks to do a 20-miler. And 2 and then you work down to, if you've done an 18, you've done a 16, it's by twos. You have a hard week, you have an easy week, you have a hard week. And that was the proper way to change. But I think some people want to get into running or walking, and they start off doing 5. You can't do that. I mean, you hurt all over. Cause
You want to give up, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you want to give up.
You get up and you hurt.
Yeah. And the part that I'm trying to get to, too, I love that, Mom, because Martin was a really important person in your life.
Yeah.
In Dad's life, he was one of your best friends and one of Dad's best friends. So, and he really was a person who was competitive. I'm thinking of people who start and say, I can't do this. I've never run. I've been on a couch. Maybe you're trying to get fit, like we had been smoking, and you go out the first time and you're probably feeling terrible. What kept you going in the first weeks that you started running?
Beating the men.
That's all you wanted to do was
Yes,
beat everybody.
yes.
Did you know you had that competitive side?
No, I didn't. Even now, I don't think I do sometimes.
She is competitive. Dad is rolling his eyes like you have no idea about this woman. Because you had never done a sport in high school?
No.
You had never done a
I
sport
had
before
done
this?
some. I was one of the leading kickball. They had kickball then. You kick.
That I did not know. You were a leading kickball player?
Yes, I could beat all the guys.
So you knew a little bit that you had that competitive spirit.
No.
You know now, though, right?
No, yeah.
I love it.
I like beating everybody.
Well, so I want to go back to the question about, because you mentioned a little bit, is what is the number one way you became such a competitive runner? You have run the Marine Corps Marathon multiple times. You qualified and ran Boston at least 10 times.
11 times.
11 times. And you've won hundreds of races, maybe even thousands. But what was the number one way you became that competitive runner? Is it that training program, or was it beating everybody, or was it just like you had a mindset of like, I can do this?
I don't know. I don't know. I think the weight problem. I always had a weight problem, and I could take weight off. And now that I can't run, I'm older. I'm gaining weight, and the doctor said to me, who runs, my own doctor runs, and she said to me, "Now that's the weight you should be." I said,
You look pretty good, I have to say. And by pretty good, I mean you look amazing. So I think you should give yourself a round of applause. So I love that you like to kick everybody's butt. It's pretty it's pretty
Well,
inspiring.
I do in the grocery store and everything else. Even the grocery store, the guy said to me, "You don't have one of those watches?" I said, "No, not everybody can afford one of those watches where you tap it and you get a cheaper price." And then he says, "Oh, I'm sorry." I threatened to sue him. And he said to me, "Well, now you just go down and you get the credit to your credit card." I said, "No, you go down." And the girl says, "I know how to do this on the register to give you the sale price."
I love how you leverage being older and making them.
Yeah, they think they
get
can
what you
walk
want.
over you.
Yeah.
Especially a woman.
Yes. Dan.
I wanted to make a comment about how she says I don't know if I'm that competitive. We go out walking with a friend of ours, and I said to him one day, he said to me, "How competitive is she?" I said, "You want to see something? Watch this." I started walking fast and past her. She ran right by me. All we're doing is out walking. And I said, "There's your answer." I said, I went by her. She couldn't stand it. She had to run by me to let me know, I could still beat you.
I love
can.
it. I know. I'm not going to even challenge you on that, Mom. I'm not. So my last question for you, Mom, is since retiring, you have taken up golf as well, which I was very surprised by because I always thought you were like, yes to running, no to golf. So I love that you and Dad play that together. What is your favorite part about playing golf? And I have a feeling I know the answer based on your previous answers.
I think the guy that I was in a rut. They call it a rut. You play golf a certain way, and you're always like I was always very good at putting, and I got mad at him because I'm left-handed, and both my children are left-handed.
That's true.
He taught me right-handed to play golf, and I was a whiz at putting. I could, no matter what it is, the full length of the green or what, I could put it in the hole. And he said, "I didn't know you were that." I said, "Yes, I am left-handed, and both my kids are left-handed, and I'm very proud of it. You're very good at golf." But I think the most important part of golf was I was in a rut. I could not even putt. I couldn't hit. I couldn't get it off the ground. I was always hitting it fast, and it would just skim, and it would get up on the green, but still. And we met this guy. They paired us with him once, and he said to me, "You just don't have the T high enough. The T, I had T it this way." And he said, "I want you to T it that high." I did, and I was on in 2, right? The 9th hole.
You're doing great. I don't want to get into how many times she beats me again.
I literally thought her answer was because I beat all the men, especially her father. I felt like there was going to be a theme, but I like that, Mom. So you learned to play. Like we were 72. Is that what you said when you first started playing?
Yeah.
And you really enjoyed it, and then you were struggling a bit, and then you took the advice, one easy bit of advice, and it changed the game.
Bit. He says, "You just don't have it." I said to him, "I can't get the ball up in the air. I wanted to be like the pros." And of course, he uses nothing but irons, and I use woods, And he said, "Just tee it up higher. That's all." And I did, and I.
Now you're
rest
beating
is
Dad.
history.
Yeah, now you're beating Dad. We know that.
No, all the old men who say, "Oh, we don't want a woman playing with us," they don't even have a tee for me. No, really. No, I'm serious. I could sue them for that, for sexual discrimination.
Yeah.
And I'm big on that. I am really big on women's rights and all that stuff. So.
Got to bring your own tees to beat them. That's great, Mom. Thanks for answering all the questions. It was fun to hear it in a different way. And now Susan is going to ask you some quick fire questions for you both to answer together.
Ready?
Yeah.
What is your favorite part about being in your 80s? And what's your least favorite part?
My favorite part to begin with is I got to be 80.
Yeah.
I look back at my family's history, and it just surprised me. It surprised me, yeah. The other thing is just the amount of time I get to spend with Jeannie. I enjoy it all. We enjoy it all.
Jean, how about you?
I didn't even know. I mean, in your 80s, all of a sudden you just feel this. You have this funny feeling, And I thought maybe with my heart problems, and I couldn't believe it, a runner and that. I couldn't. One day I just said, "No, I can't even get up the hill. I can't even walk up the hill." It scared me, and actually my doctor said to me, "Thank God you were a runner and I'm a runner, and I understood what you were feeling." She said, and she sent me to a cardiologist, and I had a valve replacement. And they said from running, I was in such good health. My cholesterol, everything was in good health that they would operate, right? But we had to push that.
Your arteries were clear as a bell.
Clear as a bell.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe that. I said, for somebody, to be a runner and have heart problems. But it's something that's inherited. You can't stop it. My mother had the same problem, and they wouldn't even operate on her because she was 90. She was in her 80s when they found out. And they wouldn't even.
But you were in such good health, right?
From
It's
running.
another point that you could get the surgery, recover, and do well, where maybe somebody else, if they
I would recover if it wasn't for your father. He babies me like a baby.
Just want to make sure we're around a little while longer.
Gee, where are you? Where are you? He doesn't even know where I go half the time. I'm down cellar doing the laundry or something.
I wish people, this is the point of the podcast that I wish we videoed it, because the love that you have for each other is so present. I'm like, I've got chills. It's just beautiful, beautiful to see, and it's an inspiration.
When you're together for over 60 years, I met her in 1956. In 1956, I met her. She was working at a
5 and dime.
Yeah,
5
tell
and
us
10.
the story. Tell the full story.
She was
about how you
working
met.
at a 5 and 10. I'm in the Marine Corps, right?
I didn't know that.
And I'm walking by a window on Main Street in Danbury, and I look in, and I see a girl that I grew up with, Mary Fiore. And I walk in, and I'm talking to Mary, and I look over at the register, and I see this very lovely blonde girl there. And I asked Mary, I said, "Who is that?" She said, "Oh, Jeannie Anderson." I said, "Any chance you could introduce me?" She said, "Certainly." She says, she took me over. I was home on leave. And I told her, I said, would you go out with a guy that you hardly know? And I don't know what it meant to her. She looked at me, she said yes.
I don't know why I said yes. I didn't even know his
Tell
name.
them the story about when you got home.
I got home and my father said, "Oh, you have another date tonight?" And I said, "Yeah." "What's the guy's name?" And I said, "Gee, I forget." He says, "You can't
I'm
even remember his
surprised.
name." Yeah. And he opened. Bob then came to the door, knocked on the door, and he opened the door, and he says, "A Marine."
I was in uniform. She didn't know I was a
I
Marine.
didn't
When
know
I
he
met
was
her,
in
I was in
uniform.
civvies. I walked into my Marine Corps uniform, and I looked a little bit better then. And I walked in, and her father's a big guy.
He was a
He
big
looked
football
at me.
player.
He looked at me, and I said, "Whoa." But it turned out pretty well. He and I got along great all the
Yeah,
time.
we went together for 5 years before we got married.
Well, I was just starting college,
and I was still in high
No
school.
way we were going to get married until I got out of college.
Didn't you break a date to go out with him? You told a lie to the guy you were going to go on a date with just to go out with Dad.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. I would say it really worked out. What advice do you have to a successful and long marriage? You've been married for 64 years. What advice would you give our listeners?
It's a mutual thing.
Able
It's a
to talk, yeah.
It's a 50-50 operation. I have great respect for her in the role she played, and she had great respect for me in the role I played.
But you can talk to each other about everything. I mean, for 6 months, for longer than that, half our marriage, I handled the money and paid all the bills and all that. And then I was doing my own business bills. I said, "Why don't you just pay the bills?" But we know financially what we have. And some couples, there's some couples that we know that just don't do that.
It's just a mutual. There's no big magic thing here. It's mutual respect for each other. I wouldn't do anything to
We
hurt
fight
her,
and all that. That's
and she
normal.
wouldn't do anything to hurt me.
No.
Well, maybe some bad advice from one of her friends, which I don't even want to bring up the name, about smother him with a pillow if he bothers
I
you,
said that. It was me.
I think it's too smart. Just one night, take the pillow and go.
Just take him out one day if you get had enough.
I could sometimes. I think everybody feels that way. Every woman.
Yeah, I don't think there's a magic bullet to a marriage. I think you love a person, you respect them, and you treat them that way. I see my daughter and I see my son, they both act that way. It's not a magic thing. The failure is when one person feels better than another one.
We know
That's
that.
always
we know
the
people
worst
that
part.
way.
Yeah.
It certainly set a great example for
Absolutely.
your children.
Absolutely.
Is there any advice that you would give to your younger self?
That's a good question. It really gets me thinking. There's a lot of, in my feeling, there's a lot of luck to your life. I think about myself sitting in the barracks with 78 other guys, thinking about getting out and going to work in a factory with my friend Bob, and there's double decks everywhere, and there happens to be an empty one next to me, and two young guys sit there that are going to college, and that's what they wanted to talk to me about. One was going to Ohio State, one was going to Michigan, and I didn't even know what the GI Bill was. I had no idea. And they sat there and talked to me about it, and I took a leave. I was ready to get out in June. I took a leave in May and walked over to Danbury Teachers College in my uniform. And I sat down, and when I say luck, I had this piece of luck, and I acted on it. I went to college, and I met with the Dean of Women. And I said, she said, "How are your grades?" I said, I wasn't much of a student. I took all general courses. I said that. She said, "We're desperate for teachers in America today." This is 1961. There was a teacher shortage, she said. "And we love military men." She said, I don't want to see your record, your transcripts, anything. You're in the Marine Corps. We'd love to have you. I said, "Great." And I went back and I got my discharge, and I was set in September to go to college. I go to college. There's hundreds of students, big class. I sit next to two guys that are military guys. One was married with two kids, my friend Merle, and one was my good friend, Chris Benson, who's still my good friend right to this day. And they're both in the military. They're both directed. They both want to, we make a study group. I had a study group the first semester. with two nice guys. They both flunked out, and I happened to hang in. I happened to hang in, and then I met these two guys. Pure luck. I went to a geography class, and there was an empty seat. I sat down, and they were both there, and they talked to me, and we got together, and they made up a study group. I graduated 7th in my class. I don't tell everybody that we're only 75 kids. I
still
usually
really
just
good.
say I
7th
graduated
is still
7th
pretty
in
good.
my
I
class.
would take that any day.
Yeah, really. And so a lot of it is just luck. My first day of school, I had the luckiest thing I ever did. I walked into a class of 5th graders, and sitting in front of me, just like you are, the class was talking and jumping around. It was like a madhouse. And I walked in, and there was a little girl, Mimi Parasette. I'll always remember her. She had glasses and braces, sitting in the front
Little
row,
blonde hair.
like this,
Cute.
like this. And I said, how nice it is to see a student ready to go for. And I looked up, and they were all running to their seats, sitting down and folding their hands. And I said, when I was department head, I said to my teachers, you want to be successful, you want the kids to really want to be in your class, stop catching them doing things wrong and start catching them doing things right, and let everybody know in the class why you're complimenting them. I said, because I found that out my first day of teaching. I complimented one kid, and 25 other kids ran to their seats. And I said, if you do that, you'll be a successful teacher. When they opened the high school, I was this is bragging, I'm sorry, but it happens to be a fact. I was the favorite teacher in 7 straight yearbooks of graduating students. So 85 teachers in the school. I was 7 years in a row, I was the favorite teacher.
So they started letting them
They stopped it. They stopped favorite teacher because the principal said, this is not good for the other teachers to have you up there all the time, you know.
That does not surprise me in any way, shape, or form that you were the favorite teacher. You would have been my favorite teacher.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gene,
That's
what
awfully
advice do
nice.
you have for your younger self?
I don't know. I'm just happy the way I am.
And that's a good thing,
Yeah,
too.
I'm happy.
I think if I think about you, Mom, that you probably would have told your younger self, like yourself, as quick as possible, because you will be happy if you accept yourself the way you are. You don't need to change.
And she always has.
That's right.
She is who she is,
I tell you
which
how
is my
I am.
favorite thing about her. There's nothing phony about Jeannie. She is what she is. She'll tell you what she's going to tell you, whether you want to hear it or not. You know, if you ask her.
Absolutely. Or she'll smother you with a pillow, which is, I
Yeah,
know,
yes.
maybe
I was
bad
thinking about
advice.
it.
Yes.
All right, now this is our favorite part of our show,
Aha.
which is where we quiz you about a subject that you may or may not know a lot of, but I think this one you will know. And there's a few easier questions and a few tougher, but we're going to talk about music, music from the past, maybe 40s, 50s, and on. Some of these, like I said, I think you'll know, but some of them you won't. Okay, you ready for the quiz? You can pipe in, either of you. What was the stage name of the musician born as Ernest Evans? That one's a tough one to start.
It's not really tough. I have no clue.
His first and last name starts with a C, and I believe, if I'm correct, he started the craze called the twist.
Chubby Checker?
Yeah.
Chubby Checker.
Yeah, I did know somebody.
Okay, this one's easy. Probably too easy. Who made the song White Christmas famous?
Bing
Well,
Crosby.
Yeah.
She got you before you even
Yeah.
got a chance to think about it.
Not a surprise.
You had a long lead up, and she was like, Bing Crosby.
I was just
She
inhaling.
beat you. See how
Yeah.
she beat you?
You're
You were like,
slow, honey.
ah, Bing Crosby. All right. This one I didn't know, but I'm wondering if you do. What was the jazz band leader? Now, I know this would have been when you were your kid, so maybe. What was the jazz band leader Benny Goodman's nickname?
Benny Goodman. I do know all of his music, but I didn't know he had a nickname. Benny Goodman. I have no idea.
Well, what genre of music did he perform? Like, what would you call it?
Big band music.
My mother and father danced to him.
I was going to say, so this would have been more your parents. So what would you call that dance that went with that type of big band music? What was the big dance?
Well, they did oh God, what were the dances they did?
Rumbas and tangos and...
You're getting there. All right, it's a rhyme. It's the blank of blank.
The blank of blank.
And it's the words rhyme.
What is that? Was it the one where they do the knees back and forth?
I know what you're talking about. His nickname was the King of Swing.
And I
You
knew
were thinking
that.
of
Swing
Charleston.
It was back in the back of my
Charleston.
synapses. One of them would have
Charleston.
shot out. I would have
Mom's got it. The one with the knees was the Charleston.
The Charleston, yeah.
I said that.
That's what she said. But it was still a wrong answer. So,
Yeah, what the heck?
all right. Here's the last one. Who sang the song Que Sera Sera?
Oh,
Oh, I know. Not Rosemary Clooney.
No,
No,
but
no,
you're in the right. You're on the right street.
I can see her face, but I can't.
Blonde, kind of.
I know who it is. I have her picture in my mind.
Me too.
I've seen her so many times, and I just can't. Do it.
Okay, I'm going to give you a hint. If it's what's the smaller part of a week? Is there 7 blanks in a week?
7 blanks in a week, 7 days. Oh, Doris Day. Thank
My
you.
favorite actress.
I needed that. I
Oh,
couldn't-
really?
I could picture her. I
Yes,
just
your
couldn't
hair
think
and
of it.
everything. I always look at your hair when I see you
Yeah,
because
because you're a hairdresser. Yeah.
I want to make a point here that this is unfair at our age because I look at your mother some morning and I go, I know who you are.
Then you go, I think I know who I am.
Starts with a J, right? Jean?
Well, I'm going to ask you a bonus question about this. Bonus question to the last. So, who sang Que Sera Sera? It is indeed Doris Day. Bonus question is, what Alfred Hitchcock movie did the song come from?
Was she in it?
the birds.
Yes.
Her
No,
thing
she
was-
was
no,
in
no,
No.
she wasn't in the birds.
She
It's
was
gotta
in
be
the movie.
like the 29 steps or
Not
one
the
of
39
those.
steps. That's
Not
a
the
good.
39
That's a good.
steps.
It's from the 1950s, and
Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy Stewart was in it,
I've seen them all.
and
'cause
he was
I'm
in
a
4 of
movie
his.
freak.
He was in 4 or 5 Hitchcock
Not the
movies.
one where the
5.
airplane's going low.
No, that's North by. That's
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites. Mom is North by Northwest.
I'm trying to think of her in the Jimmy Stewart one.
She sings the song in the movie to find her son, who's
Their
being
son
held
has been
captive.
kidnapped.
Her son has been
in
kidnapped.
the movie, yeah.
Do you
But,
remember?
Can't do it.
The man who knew too much.
Yeah, that's right.
They love
Soon as
mysteries.
it's up
Yes.
here, it just won't fire anymore.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, that's the end of our quiz. I just want to say, Mom and Dad, Bob and Jean, this has been wonderful. As much as I may have known the answers and information in these questions, you surprised me with so many of the answers, and it was really fun to
Really?
do. Yeah.
It's fabulous. It's so wonderful to meet you. And I have, if it's all right, Shannon, a surprise question. What is your favorite story about Shannon that you like to tell?
About Shannon?
Well, she was
Just
wanted.
don't
I
ma-
tried so hard to. No, I tried very hard to get pregnant. I wore my husband out.
But you wanted her so much.
Yes. And I didn't care if it was a girl or a boy as long as the baby was healthy. And my sister wanted to give me a shower. I said, nope, we're not having showers because supposing something happens to the baby. I had a very, very bad miscarriage for that. But she was wanted so badly.
Thank you, Mom.
And even when I had her, I said to the doctor, I had a different doctor deliver her, and they take the baby and they put it on your stomach, and she had this black curly hair. I said, that's not my baby. That's a Puerto Rican baby. That's not my baby. He said, the cord is still attached. It's your baby.
I did mention that she says whatever comes to her mind.
And it's
didn't
all
I?
good. It's all good.
I warned you in the beginning. She will tell
Dr.
you
DeGrazia.
whatever comes to her mind.
He does a lot of research. He passed away, though, since. But he
I
always
would
asks-
hope so.
He always asks me
He'd
about
be like
you.
900 years old. Do you have a favorite story about me? That was very lovely, Mom.
Yeah.
I got a
My
picture of
favorite
her when
story
she was
about
born.
you is you are so successful at what you do.
Oh, that's
You're
nice.
happy.
That's my
Yes.
favorite story.
Very proud of you.
Is that she is everything that every parent hopes their daughter will be. You know, you have you raise your kids, you do your best. You never know what's going to happen in their lives and what direction they're going to go.
She knew what college she
But
wanted to go to, everything.
she's everything you would hope that your daughter would become
Very independent.
when they
Oh,
move
thank
out,
you, Mom and
really.
Dad.
And that's my favorite story about her. is that what a success she is.
Thanks,
Very
Dad.
independent. Always knew what she wanted to do. I want to run track.
And she takes after her mom. I like that too. She takes after her mom.
Yes.
I do.
That's
Just
wonderful.
exactly like me. Exactly. I was just like her. I was younger.
So, Dad, I love that you both told such lovely stories of me, but I want to remind you of the story of where you thought I was possessed by the devil.
I'm in the. We have a patio outside. Well, we had a porch at the time outside in the backyard, and she's out there by herself, and I'm in the dining room looking out at her, and I hear this voice, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I look, it's her. and remember now, she's about 3 years old.
And
We're
was
not
she
talking about
small
a
too?
little dinky kid, and I hear this voice coming of her. It sounded like a voice from, when if you're doing a scary movie and you want somebody to scare the bejeebers out of the kids listening, that's what came out of her. She's going by herself, and I'm going, holy moly! I said, what's possessing her? And then she looked at me and smiled, and she was fine. But
What
I
do you
don't know
think
See,
where
I remember a different part of the story. See if this resonates. Is that you went up to me and said, Shannon, what are you doing? And I went, I am not Shannon. And you said, you had to cross yourself and get rosary beads.
That's pretty much it, really. I mean, I was just amazed that this voice was coming out of my daughter.
So what
and
you're
she
learning-
never did it again. I don't ever
Nope.
remember her doing it again.
So, Susan, I was a weird kid. I mean, they're being very nice. I had some weird
No,
stuff
she was
that I
very
was doing.
independent.
Yes,
That's
I
what
was.
I like.
So
She'd come home like she'd been in a fight. Her stockings would be hanging. My son would come home like he just went to school. Not her. She wouldn't let anybody cross her. She was like,
Fortunately, they didn't have pillows in kindergarten.
All right. So, Susan, what did you think of the experience of meeting my parents?
I think it's been fabulous. I feel like I know a little bit about you because I've known Shannon for a long time and always knew that you were runners and that she loved you so much. And you're a very important part of her life. But to meet you in real life, just brings all those stories so tactile. Like, I want to hug you both. Are we going to hug it out at the end?
I think we need
I
to
hope
and
we're
get a
going to hug it
picture
out.
for our social media. And I just think it's fun to have somebody else that I know, like you and I. You were at my wedding, but you didn't grow up with me. You didn't know my parents. So I've only told you, and now you get to meet the real people and get to see this other side of me because you've always known the work side of me or like the personal side of me. But to like know what it was like to grow up, you get a little snapshot.
Yeah, and I think to see your motivation, and you are incredibly successful personally, professionally, as a mom, as a businesswoman. We've worked together. I've seen you in detail in your professional life. You can see where it comes from. You can see what that support then translates into another person's life. It's really beautiful.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming to the studio today and having time with us. We'd like to thank Sterling-Lancaster Community Television, our producer Victoria, our listeners and followers on social media.
Want to get smarter? Tune in for more episodes of Smarter Than Us.
See you next time.